Welcome to Canucks After Dark. Here are your hosts, Parker Hallowell and Clay Emo.
Good evening, Vancouver. We are live here on YouTube and on Twitter somehow. Everything's working flawlessly, it looks like. We hope you're all having a lovely Wednesday night. Normally, we're here on Mondays. This is our it's our second non-Monday show. We did a Tuesday or something like that. Or did we do that earlier on the Monday? I don't remember. Either way, our first non-Monday show. I hope you are all having a great Wednesday on this day that the offseason kind of officially begins. The Tampa Bay Lightning winning the Stanley Cup just a few hours ago. Clay, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great for many reasons, Parker. Number one, I'm a little confused though. How am I seeing us on Twitter right now? That is pretty cool.
I can't believe it works. I'm so excited.
Well, I'll let you explain to everyone what we're doing, but basically, I know we're live on Twitter, which is really our normal thing. I know we're still on YouTube, which is good. I know there's still gonna be a podcast, and I'm in a good mood because Parker, tomorrow, my wife Gail and I celebrate 21 years of marital bliss.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Very good to hear.
Thank you. Same day as Fangirl, her birthday. So we will never forget each other's big days. Yes.
And happy birthday to Fangirl as well.
Absolutely.
While we're here, I guess we'll address sort of what's going on. Of course, last time we tried to stream this on Monday. Everything fell apart, kind of like it did last Monday. But now we are on a new platform, and everything just gets better from here. We have production value. We've got banners that can appear on screen as we go. We can see you in the comments right here. Lucas is fired up about the show tonight. Justin says it looks sharp and that Canucks After Dark is making history.
Yes.
This is so cool. I've wanted to switch this for a while, and this was the boost we needed to do it. So I'm super fired up about this, and we hope you guys are too. And for those of you listening on the podcast side, I recommend jumping over and taking a look at the video because it's actually pretty sweet. And of course, nothing on that side will change. We will still have the podcast up just moments after the show ends. So yeah, really exciting.
Yeah, and the one thing I'm scared about, Parker, people won't see this, but I know in the back end for us, there's the comments tab, and right next to it, there's the private chat tab. So if you have to send something to me or I got to send something to you, we got to make sure that we're not making fun of anyone that's in the chat, right? Basically.
Yeah, we're just throwing people under the bus right in the comments. No, we're nice to you guys off stream, of course. Lots of stuff to talk about tonight. Of course, Stanley Cup final just finished up mere 2 hours ago. Chris Faber in the chat. Hello. For his first time stopping in here. Podcasting legend. Absolutely. Yes. Stanley Cup finals, Lightning winning their back-to-back cups. And then a bunch of other stuff. We got a bunch of key dates to talk about here. Buyout window opening tomorrow, expansion draft, entry draft, free agency. Everything's coming up over the next handful of days, basically a handful of weeks. We'll talk about Nate Schmidt. We'll talk about Beagle. We'll talk about a bunch of stuff. So make sure you stay tuned for the entire hour. And let's get it started. Clay, where do you want to go first?
Well, we can go anywhere, but what's really funny is remember on Monday night when we tried to do this, Parker, and we were saying, it's like 2 weeks and 2 days until everything starts happening. Well, now it's only 2 weeks away. But even before that, July 21st and the expansion draft, we have a little thing called the buyout window that, you're right, got triggered. Basically, as soon as that final whistle went, 24 hours later, it is the buyout window opens, and the Canucks have a few candidates, some more appealing than others, that potentially they could buy out, save some money, and go after some other players. So, yeah.
Yeah, a bunch of huge days coming up. And of course, this all starts with a buyout window. And basically the rules on that is from 24 hours after the Stanley Cup final ends, which was about 8 p.m. So that's why we have 8 p.m. here, until the night before free agency. So that'll be July 27th, be the last day of the buyout window. And there's a few candidates for buyouts. I'd say there's probably between 1 and 3, and I think only one is actually realistic. And look, buyouts don't happen very often in the NHL. It's a handful every year at most. But of course, it looks like we'll have at least one on the docket this year.
Yeah, and I think no surprise for people. With Jake Virtanen, his name is the one that's been out there because not only because of actually his I don't want to say legal trouble yet, but his obviously what he's going through, but we talked about this before, because of his age, because he's under a certain threshold, you actually save more by buying him out than you would anyone. I think 25 is the gap, right? Or 26?
Yeah,
or
it's 25 or 26. I think it's basically the way it works. So the way a normal buyout works is that it's 2/3 of the rest of the money left on your contract over double the remaining length of the contract. So basically, if you have a guy who's making $2 million this year, you can instead pay him like a quarter or 2/3 of a million for the next 2 years instead. But the way it works for extra young players in Jake Virtanen's shoes, being, 25, 26, 24, that sort of age range, it's 1/3. So it's half of the cap hit. So for a Jake Virtanen, we're talking about instead of paying him 2.55 million, which is his cap hit for this year, it would be $50,000 for this year, and then $500,000 next year. So instead of, the 2.55, you're basically paying him absolutely nothing over the next 2 years.
And because of that, doubling the time left on the contract, that's why it doesn't make sense to buy out anyone who has more than a year left. Because if it's a guy with 2 years left, now you're paying him over 4. Yes, you're paying him less, but now you have that contract for 4, 6, 8 years on the books. So that's interesting, Parker, because if we agree that Jake Virtanen might be, the most opportune one, it's funny. Holtby, Roussel, Beagle, Eriksson all have 1 year left. So according to my little math, at least time horizon, you'd at least look at them, but then you got to look at how much do you save versus just putting them in Abbotsford. I almost said Utica, putting them in Abbotsford, and you're already going to save 1.1 or so there. So are you going to save much more than that? Does it make sense?
Right. And The Athletic did a really good breakdown of this a month ago, I think. And basically, you look at the Jake Virtanen one, it's like, okay, well, you could put him in Abbotsford, but I don't think that's a good idea just based on everything that's going on. But you could, in theory, just strictly cap wise, you could put him in Abbotsford. It would save about $1 million. But this year, since you have to pay him basically nothing for this year, because his contract had a little more front load to it, you're talking literally nothing, like literally $50,000 this year. And it would save about 1.5 million or 1.4 million or so. But when we look at those other guys where we're talking about, you're literally saving about $1 million this year. It's like, okay, well, you can do that by sending him to AHL, right? To Abbotsford. Right. So in those cases, it doesn't really make sense. And, Jake Virtanen's the main one. The only other one that kind of makes a little bit of sense is Braden Holtby, if you really want that money off the books this year. Because the way that would go is you'd basically save about $2.7 million this year. But then you'd have to bring in a backup goalie to replace him, right? So that's another $1 million off of that. So about $1.6 million. But it would cost you 1.9 next year instead of 0 next year, which is what it would be if you just let it run out. So I'm thinking on everyone who expires this year, the Holtbys, the Erikssons, Beagle, Roussel, that whole glut of money, we're so close. Write
it out.
It's 1 year away. Let's just eat it for a year. This isn't a team that's winning the Stanley Cup this year, so let's just eat it for the 1 year instead of bleeding it into yet another season next year where it's just more stuff to worry about.
You're right. Holtby, Roussel, Beagle, Eriksson, and Luongo's cap recapture penalty, they all come off the books at the end of next season.
Yeah, I forgot about Luongo. Wow, that's going to be a nice $3 million of extra money.
It's crazy. It's just stupid.
People keep saying it's a flat cap, but I think it's going up for the Canucks here because there's a bunch of money coming off the books, although a bunch of money being added onto the books. And we've gone over, of course, the Pettersson and Hughes contracts in depth many times. So that's just a bunch of stuff going on. But the buyout window is going to be interesting. I haven't really followed the rest of the league very closely to see what other teams, like what other options there are, what other likely buyouts there are. But it would be interesting to see, right? You do have the potential for some guys on maybe some bloated contracts around the league to get bought out and then be willing to take a league minimum deal next year. And that could be a way to maybe bring in some guys on cheaper contracts as well.
Good point. And at the end of last year's Stanley Cup bubble that Tampa Bay won as well, the buyout window starts, but then you're hearing flat cap, right? Because they had come back from the new CBA coming back to the bubble, but they were saying flat cap, but no one really knew what that meant. And now that we know that the salary cap's not going to go up for another 2 or 3 years, you're right, Parker. It's going to be more important. This buyout window is going to be more important. More teams are going to be looking for flexibility, and the Vancouver Canucks are definitely going to be one of them, or they at least should be one of them.
Yeah, and it's one of those times where it's just like you gotta weaponize whatever abilities you have, whether that is your limited cap space, which they kind of did with Nate Schmidt last year, although that looks to have potentially been a failed experiment at this point. And then, the whole expansion draft coming up this year, the potential for cheap free agents, because you're going to have to replace those guys, whether it's this year or next year, right? Are you bringing back Matthew Highmore? Are you bringing back Travis Boyd, Jimmy Vesey, right? Like, these are some names that probably you're not going to bring back next year. You're going to have to go out and find guys. Travis Hamonic, for example, right? Are you going to be willing to pay him double what you paid him this year because he had a good year and he can actually get some money and some security elsewhere? Or do you go elsewhere and you try to make those bets on guys where you can spend $1 million for a year, bring them in, get value, and then just keep churning through those is sort of your best bet. And this is, this could be a way that gets done.
Since you mentioned it, can I give you my Nate Schmidt conundrum, if that's cool?
Sure. Let's talk about Nate Schmidt.
Oh, basically did that before I even said it. That's so impressive. Everyone liked the video just for the fact that Parker has ESP. That was pretty cool. Okay. A couple things. And we talked about this before, even off air. We're both not very clickbaity, right? Like that's kind of not our style. We generally like to report on news, anticipate it, sure, but definitely report on news once it's confirmed. I won't speak for you, Parker, but I don't like to do a lot of trade rumor videos. I wouldn't say it's easy or a crutch. Like, people do them and do them well and real research, good on them. But I don't like to do them. But this Nate Schmidt one has been in the in the media for the past 3 to 4 weeks, ever since the season ended for the Canucks, or even longer. So I talked about it again today. I got a couple comments. Oh, this is such clickbaity. But here's my thing. Okay, forget about that. Isn't it crazy perspective? When we got him on Thanksgiving weekend last year, the narrative was, wow, what a steal. A top 4 defenseman for a third round draft pick who might not ever pan out. And just 10 months later, the narrative is, wow, this guy makes a lot of money. How are we going to survive with a 30-year-old with 4 more years at $6 million? Isn't that crazy?
Well, I think that was part of the narrative off the trade too, was, okay, look, this is a very good bet. Right? Yeah. Yes, he makes a lot of money for quite a bit of time, but he is a bona fide top 4 defenseman from a contending team, with a team that has a strong defense in Vegas, who looks like going to be a really solid offensive piece for a team that has no defense, frankly, right? Like, this is a team where defense is the biggest hole. It has been forever. And, we're talking about a guy who is a bona fide top 4 defenseman. Now, the risk was that he might have been, whether it's being propped up by the players around him in Vegas, or whether it's just being on a team where his style works better, where he comes here, he regresses, he doesn't play up to his level that he had played for the last few years. And now you're not stuck with a contract, because I think he has more positive value than negative value. Because I think at the end of the day, teams can look at this and they can say, they can sort of trick themselves into believing he's still good, right? They can look at it and be like, okay, well, he was really good the last few years, and pandemic, and traded to a new team, and this team's bad, and all these things. And they can, if a team likes Nate Schmidt, they can trick themselves into really liking Nate Schmidt still. So I don't think it's one of those things where it's like, what, like, are you going to struggle to get a third back, or even nothing back? Like, whatever, right? A 3rd round pick, worth the gamble all the time. And I would say it's worth not trading him if Nate Schmidt didn't allegedly want to be traded. Now, we haven't heard out of Nate Schmidt's mouth that he wants to be traded. And that's why people would come to your video and say, like, oh, it's clickbait, whatever. Where there's smoke, there's fire. And if we're talking about 4 weeks, basically a month of the media saying, people who have, some of them have better sources than others, not going to name any names. But when all of them are, slowly just throwing little things out there, like, it sounds like Nate Schmidt might not want to be here. Sounds like they're looking at shopping him elsewhere. This, that, just all these little things, right? They sort of stack up, and eventually you start to think, well, they're getting this from somewhere, right? I don't think that someone said it and all the media members are like, ooh, I like this. And they all just kept building a snowball. I think that, there's probably some smoke somewhere. And look, if you have a guy on your team who doesn't want to be on your team, and if I'm Nate Schmidt and you go from a perennial contending team in Vegas where you're a really big part of it and you're loved by the fans there, up to, and then the year experience you have is going to Vancouver, a different country that is completely locked down, no fans in the stands. You have just there was no fun this year, right? And he can look back on, it's got to be a great time in Vegas, right? So if that's his thought, like, I can't blame him. I would probably be thinking a similar thing. So,
and to that point, actually, Parker, can you put up Christopher DeMarco's latest comment from about 10:13 p.m.?
Sure.
Yeah, just because he says exactly what you were just talking about. Is Nate Schmidt? He's a very sociable person, and because of the pandemic, he didn't get to know his teammates well. I feel next year he'll be significantly better. I think that's a great point, and you just made it, Parker. Is that social? We've seen the way when he was mic'd up. That was like one of the most popular videos of the year. Mm-hmm. We know that this guy thrives. We can presume that he thrives on interaction. He's an extrovert, and he didn't get to enjoy anything. His teammates, the city, the beautiful city we have. Maybe it was just a rough transition year for him, and maybe he will be a lot better. And I hope so. I like him. I really, really like him. Can you do one more favor? 4 above that, Fangirl. What trade value do you think he has? Yeah. So this is tricky because I heard Thomas Drance talk about bundling Nate Schmidt with maybe another player, another asset, and then you can go after like a big fish, like a Reinhardt or a Seth Jones, right, or something like that, or you get your third back and you call it a day, kind of thing. I don't know. Yeah,
and I mean, if you're able to go out and get a third back, then it's like, okay, it was a wash, right? It literally had no effect except we had a fun guy. We got a fun mic'd up video out of it, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
And if you're talking about, I don't know, like it's so weird, right? Like I think if he comes back next year and we have a sold out arena for half the games because the team kind of sucks, but you have fans in the stands, you have a fun environment, right? Like a Saturday night game against Montreal, like I can see him sort of thriving in that, and has a few good games in those scenarios, and suddenly he's having a great time. The team wins a few games, having a great time, right? The Canucks underperformed this year, and Nate Schmidt was a part of that. He also underperformed this year based on his previous seasons, but if you start getting those pieces to all do well, then these problems start to go away. It just is whether or not he wants to stick it out this year, and he has every right to say he doesn't.
Yeah, no, you're right on. So lastly, let's put this topic to rest for now. Do you want him back, and do you think he'll be back?
Yeah, why not? Whether I want him back, sure, right? Like at the end of the day, it's a blip, right? Yeah. It's one bad year. I don't think he was really utilized in his strong suit, right? I think, the bringing in like a Bradshaw might help. Sort of the whole defensive side was sort of a goal here, and that might do something useful. Do I think he stays? I'm kind of 50-50 just because, when the rumor sort of started, I was like, oh, there's no, like, again, every time a rumor starts, like, oh, it's one guy saying this, whatever. But, as everyone starts to say it starts to, catch on a little bit. I think it's really going to depend, right? I think the Canucks are going to have to look at, if he wants to be traded, what's their backup plan, right?
Yeah.
Where are they? You now have a top 4 defenseman you have to replace. That's not an easy thing to do, right? Now getting, a few million off the cap from trading him would make it easier, but you're paying a premium free agency, and it's a slippery slope in my opinion. If you're actually trying to make the team better, which Jim Benning says he told Nate Schmidt. So it's a weird vibe, I guess.
It is. And with, one thing, I'll just say this, when you have who we'd probably agree, the most connected and most trusted local person, Rick Dhaliwal, right? Yep. He's the most connected. And then when you have, I'd say the most trustworthy national person, Elliot Friedman, if they're both reporting independently that there's something here, then I think you got to give a bit of credence to it for sure.
Yeah. And it's hard not to, because these are guys who, they don't get a lot of ththings wrong. Frankly, they are very connected, and I do hope he stays though.
Yes. Can you put up our Grant's thing real quick? I'll just address it really quickly. Hey guys, you do great service to Canucks fans. Thank you, our Grant. We appreciate that. Not sure you touched on this, but I'm curious about your thoughts. Who is first on the buyout chopping block? So, our Grant, you may have just got here. That was actually the first thing we led with. So we'd ask you to. It's awesome you're here. Go back when we're done and watch maybe from the 5-minute mark on. And actually, that's the first topic that we addressed. But thank you.
And the answer is Jake Vertanen. All right,
yes.
Moving on. Let me put that comment away and let's go. Where do you want to go next?
Off of give me put the random topic generator up, and we'll see what happens.
Oh, I don't know. That's not a button I have. Okay. Well, maybe we should talk, we're about 20 minutes in. We do have, a fair amount of people here. Do we want to talk about sort of our scheduling plans for the next little while here with the show? It's sort of, some things are changing up.
Sure.
Let's talk about some key dates. So we already talked about buyouts, right? Buyouts starting literally tomorrow. But then it's the peak off season coming up. So next week, not a lot going on, nothing really. But then we have the expansion draft on July 21st. That's a Wednesday. Then we have the NHL draft July 23rd on a Friday, and then free agency opens on July 28th, also a Wednesday. If you're noticing a pattern here, today's Wednesday, and we're doing a show. Next week, nothing going on. The 2 weeks after that, Wednesdays are big days. So because of that, we're going to bump all of our shows for the month of July to Wednesday. And because of that, this adds a lot of just more timely coverage, because as this ticker goes along here, you'll see. So July 14th, just a regular show, regular weekly show. July 21st, the Seattle expansion draft. We can do a show literally that night right after it happens. July 23rd, a Friday, we're doing an extra show. So you'll have 2 shows that week. We'll do one for the NHL draft, at least the first round, talk about the Canucks pick. And then July 28th, the following Wednesday, is right after the start of free agency. So lots of stuff going on Wednesdays this month. So we thought, you know what, let's move them all to Wednesdays. We'll add an extra show in here to make up for it on the NHL draft day. And it's going to be a lot of fun.
I think that's a good strategic move by us. What's ironic? Chronic Hands says nicely done, Clay, and his name is Hands, and I was the one. Yeah, I did practice that though, but yes, it makes sense because, like you said, the technical difficulties moved us to Wednesday today. Then 2 out of the next 3 big dates of Canucks and NHL talk will happen on Wednesday nights. Throw in an extra Friday night in there, and I don't think anyone will complain, Parker.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. So make sure you guys are subscribed to the YouTube channel so it pops up whenever we're live. And make sure you're basically subscribed to everything on your podcast platform. Make sure, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, go leave us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts because that's great, and we'll read it out on the show.
Can you just put up Amrits?
Oh, whoops. It went away. There we go. You guys got to be quicker here. We've been live for 23 minutes, Amrit. Look, we're not trying to call you out or anything.
No, we're happy.
We're not being mean. But we did literally just talk about this like for the last 10 minutes. So after the show, go back, rewind. It's all here on YouTube on the VOD, so you can go back, rewind it, or download the podcast later and catch up. All right. Now you guys know our shows for the rest of the rest of the month here. I'll keep them on the bottom for a while here, so anyone joining in knows about the rest of our month.
But Amrit, we appreciate you watching, of course, and we did a good few minutes on it, so please check that out. No, it's not your bad. It's fine. Hey, do you have a Jay Beagle banner?
Jay Beagle. Do I have a Jay Beagle banner? What a question. Of course I have a Jay Beagle banner.
Okay. Did you know?
Go ahead.
Yeah. Well, Rick Dollywall shared on his show. So we use his name a lot because he is the most trusted source and he's so well connected. He was one who, at least for me, it was the first time I heard that Beagle's issue was a neck injury. Did you know that before?
No, I had almost no information.
Me too. I thought given his age and just older guys, whatever, it's usually maybe a groin or something, lower body, but
something soft tissue, just something stretching.
Yeah, but neck's kind of scary. But I guess the good news, no, it's not. I guess the good news is it sounds like he's ready to play, unless you are one who wanted him to start on LTIR to free up that money. But that's kind of a mean way of looking at that. We have a lot of time to talk about that. So, Jay Beagle, are you okay with him being our 4th line center next season?
Yeah. And it's the same. Like, so I guess the original thing was there was rumors that Jay Beagle just wouldn't be around next year. Like he wouldn't be able to play. Now, obviously we want him to be healthy. Purely cap wise, that would have been better. However, you're paying him $3 million. If you're going to have him as your 4C, that's fine. Your other options, I mean, Brandon Sutter, if you're going to bring him back, but you can't have both, in my opinion. That's sort of where I draw the line. You can have Brandon Sutter, you can have Jay Beagle, but you can only have one of them. Yeah. Because I don't want this team to have Brandon Sutter as a third line center. Now, the thing about that is you can have one of them in the press box or in Abbotsford, even though they're, Beagle's making too much money, but you can have him in Abbotsford because either way you're paying him regardless, right? The problem is you're going to have a coach who the second the team loses 2-3 games in a row, he's going to think, we need a Jay Beagle. We need someone I can trust on the fourth line. And it's just like, we're going to just keep doing this dance again where we're just bringing back mediocre players that make too much money. But look, he's already getting paid. It can't hurt. Bring him back. It's fine. Whatever.
Yeah. I've always said, Parker, that to me, Jay Beagle and Brandon Sutter are not identical players, but they are redundant players. Mm-hmm. They do the exact same things well. They are good leaders in the room, on the ice. They can kill penalties. They're responsible defensively. They can win draws, but they contribute almost next to nothing. I know Sutter had one hat trick, but almost next to nothing offensively.
So random.
Yeah, I know. So you're right. You put any of those two guys, you put both of those guys in your bottom six, and you've really kind of doused your creativity, your scoring, your offensive awareness. So I'm with you. And if you're right, Beagle's under contract for one more year, and he's serviceable for sure.
Yeah. Agam says you can just leave them both out of the lineup, which fair play to that. But yeah, I totally agree. And yeah, they're not identical players, but they fill the same role.
Yes.
And at the end of the day, that is a replacement level fourth line player, fourth line center. And at the end of the day, you don't need three of those, right? Let's go a little bit off topic. This isn't something I have a banner for.
Okay.
But Lucas left a comment here. The team name for Abbotsford dropping on Friday. Now, look, we won't be able to talk about that till next Wednesday instead of Monday now. Now, the rumors are Abbotsford Canucks.
Right. And you didn't like that. When we talked about this 2 weeks ago, you didn't like that at all. I hate it.
Oh, I don't like it at all. Now, will I care that much overall? Probably not. Right. But it's the opportunity to do something cool. Yeah. And they're not doing something cool. So I think it's boring. Something like, Aviators seem to be sort of the leader on the as a non-Canucks name. That would have been good. I personally liked Aces, and I think I said that a lot. But I am good with I'd prefer Aces or Aviators. Canucks is just bland to me. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to build brand reputation, good marketing, it kind of makes sense, but it's just kind of boring.
We do see from a marketing, strategic standpoint, just a brand awareness thing. This is the easy way for sure. Because you can go maybe not logo, but you can go colors, those kind of themes for sure. And I one point that a few people, I think Justin brought it up in the chat, and I know as well, it's not uncommon that your farm team has the same name as your pro team. I'm just looking at a list right now. Bridgeport Islanders, Providence Bruins, Wilkes-Barre Scranton Penguins, Belleville Senators, Iowa Wild, and Texas Stars. So that's already 6 other teams that have the same thing, for better or for worse.
Yeah, there's a ton, and it does make sense, right? Even if you're trying to bring in new fans in Abbotsford, Chilliwack Mission, right? If they see, the Abbotsford Aces are playing tonight. What's that? A junior B team, right? Like that might be their first instinct, right? Like, the Pilots rebranded or something like that. But if they see Abbotsford Canucks, they're like, is that like the Vancouver Canucks? Is it the same thing? It's like, yeah, it is. And it's if, for the more casual observer, it does make some sense.
Yeah. What's interesting, the timing, like there's a guy named Ben Litka who writes for the Abbotsford News, and he did a good research piece on this, and he's the one who kind of broke it first. He also said that the Canucks, Parker, had been reserving domain names and social media accounts all the way from May 5th May 5th. That's 2 months ago, even before they asked the fans what would they prefer.
Yeah, I think that's pretty common business practice wise. I think basically whenever a company is thinking of a new product, they're like, well, let's grab the domain name. Because if we leak that this thing is going to be a thing, there's going to be some group of people that go try to snag up the domain names and try to sell them to us for 30 grand, right? So it just kind of makes sense to, let's just grab all the names at once. Domain names are cheap, right? We're talking they're like literally to reserve them for a year. They're probably spending like $20 a domain name, right?
Okay.
So we're talking, a $400 investment to secure all the names, and then you can just let them go after a while. So really,
I know Lucas bought about a bunch of them, which is good, which was smart. Yeah.
Good investment.
Yes.
So I think it looks like it'll be Canucks, but I hope it goes elsewhere.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, what else do we have on the list here? Do we want to talk? I mean, it's 10:30, which is our normal time. Where we do ask you guys to submit your don't do that's.
And now we can show them.
Yeah, and then we can put them on screen. So if you guys are new, every single week we do a segment called "Don't Do That." Basically, you put in XYZ. Don't do that. I don't know. Not scoring a goal in Game 5 of the Stanley Cup Finals when you need a win. Don't do that. So go throw them in the chat, and we can put them on screen. Even if you're watching on Twitter, I can still put them on screen. It's super cool. That's amazing. Go do that, and we'll come back to that for sure. I don't know how long it takes for them to pop up, but
I got one just before I forget. Buying Louis Eriksson out and extending his stay here. Don't do that.
Well, buying him out wouldn't extend his stay. It would extend his contract.
Oh, yeah.
His cap hit. Yeah. But he'd be gone. He would be gone. It's a mess.
Well, Coach Rob got abbotsfordcanucks.org. Very, very.
Wow. We had Justin. It moved. There we go. Being Nikita Kucherov unfiltered in his press conference to the media after winning the cup. Don't do that. Justin, I disagree. That was great. This is a guy who literally just won the Stanley Cup. He was just crushing beers in the dressing room. He's out there having a good time, talking some smack to Montreal. Look, this is what we want out of hockey, right? There's so many people who are like, "Oh, I wish hockey players were interesting." Like basketball does so much marketing of their star players and the trash talk that they do and their Twitter personalities and all these things. Canucks players or hockey players, it's all just a bunch of very regular guys who don't say anything and stay on the beaten path. So I think it's fun at the end of the day.
I've hinted here. I've heard Kucherov's a bit of a jerk, actually. Like
that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah. I've heard it from a couple of people who actually know him. But I see some funny technical difficulty ones.
Yeah, we had Infernal. We had Nux fan. Guys, look, it worked for 12 weeks. Okay, but now we have a more fun platform. At least it's fun to be able to show these on the stream.
That's pretty amazing.
Andrew says, don't have a parade if you don't actually win the Stanley Cup. Did Montreal have an actual parade? I thought they just had like some people hanging out outside, kind of like the firebending parade that we had in Vancouver a couple months ago.
Andrew's a good man. I know him from ministry. So yeah, it's nice to see you, Andrew. That's cool. That's cool. There's some good ones in there. Put up Agam signing character guys. That was a good one.
Where'd it go? He had like 3.
Yeah.
Signing character guys in your bottom 6. Don't do that. You can sign character guys, just don't pay them as if they are. Don't pay him because he won the Stanley Cup as a 4th line center or 3rd line center. That's
character guys who can play. That's okay. Character guys who can play. Yeah.
Right. Pat Maroon isn't the reason that he's won the last 3 Stanley Cups, right? Tampa Bay's winning the Stanley Cup this year if he doesn't play for them, and they have a replacement level player in his spot. But he's won 3 Stanley Cups. He can go anywhere and get paid because he's like, I have 3 rings. Like, you're not going to give me $3 million a year, $4 million a year. And that's, it's a thing that GMs get sucked to. They try to replicate. They're all like, well, let's look at the last team that won it and let's try to build that. And then 4 years later, once they've actually built it, 3 different styles of team have won it and you're way behind the curve already.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, the good thing is with Tampa winning, and maybe this would be a good segue when you talk a bit about the series. They can win either way. They can outscore you. They can clamp it down because of how good their decor is, and Vasilevsky, of course. They can play tough, right? So it's not like they only play one style. And obviously there's two teams out there. It's not like Tampa could exert their will and Montreal had to but you could just see that, Montreal was outclassed, and I'm not bitter because they had the Canucks number. No, Montreal peaked at the right time. They had a heck of a run, as some people have mentioned, but we were talking about David and Goliath here easily.
Yeah. And I mean, this is sort of that whole argument of you just got to make the playoffs and anyone can do it, right? And it's like, yeah, but you have to win. Like, let's say you just squeak in and make the playoffs like Montreal did. You have to beat 4 teams that are built better than you if your goal is just get in, right?
Yeah.
Montreal pulled it off against Toronto because Toronto had a monumental collapse. They walked over Winnipeg, but that's a different story. They shouldn't have beat Vegas. They played really well, but on paper they were built worse than Vegas. But Vegas has their own demons that they just can't seem to get over. They just keep getting goalied, and then they had to do it a 4th time against the best team, back-to-back Stanley Cup champion Tampa Bay Lightning, who can score, who can defend, who is one of the best offensive teams in the league, yet they've just won 2 Conn Smythes with a defenseman and a goalie, right? Like these teams, it's built so well that if your goal is just get in, it's like, okay, well, you're giving yourself, let's say you're a team that's giving yourself a 30% chance to win every series, right? You multiply that by 4 and suddenly you're down to basically 2% chance to win the Stanley Cup. That's not going to cut it.
Yeah. And you mentioned Vasilevsky. What a stat. 5 consecutive season clinching games shutouts for him. That's unreal.
Yeah.
That is unreal. And
it's just clutch. Like it's the clutch gene. And not that he was bad in the other games. I don't know what his final save percentage was, but it was probably like 940. If you like literally their 4 series that they won this playoff were all shutouts. That's absurd. And I'm sure it speaks a lot to their defense, their defensive side, saying, all right, we're going to go out there, we're going to play hard, and we're just going to not let you score. That's great. But if your goalie literally doesn't allow a goal in games that you can advance in the series, you can't lose a series ever. So it's, Vasilevsky was incredible.
I've always liked him. And then when I had Kevin Woodley on my vlog last week, he was talking about some of the stuff Vasilevsky does really well. And then I watched some of it today, and it's amazing. They made a point on the episode of pointing out on the broadcast of pointing out how when he kicks out rebounds, he literally kicks them out to his teammates. He doesn't just stop them. He is already anticipating firing his right leg out and the puck's going up the middle. It's crazy. He's so good.
Yeah, they showed one clip late in the game when it was just his stick work. Like he makes 2 really good saves, and then Corey Perry is right there going for a rebound, and he still gets his stick there to clear to the corner before Perry can. And Perry's only goal is to get a stick on the puck. Meanwhile, Vasilevsky's trying to make a save, and he's doing all this stuff, and he's just thinking the game ahead, and he's the best goalie in hockey right now. And I mean, look, Carey Price played extremely well, but if you don't have the team in front of you to help, and you're going up against that Tampa team, you're going to have some trouble.
Absolutely. I'm just laughing. Now there's don't get suckered. There's do that. There's a lot of different.
Yeah, there's a bunch of
some segment ideas there. That's good. That's good.
I disagree with what Agam says here. Anything about saying anything bad about Marc Bergevin, because if you say something bad about him, he could beat you up. He's built. So
he's massive.
We are Marc Bergevin fans here, and we will never say anything bad.
Excuse me. Why does he wear jackets when he can just show off his pipes?
He's just wearing tank tops everywhere. Like sitting in the press box, like just the intimidation factor, right? You're on the draft floor. You walk up to another team to make a trade.
Exactly.
In a tank top, and you just like kind of stand over the guy, and you're like,
probably get an extra draft pick out of it.
Like, I think you're throwing in a 3rd round pick here.
Exactly.
And it's like, you're not going to say no to that guy.
Yeah, that's funny. Hey, I know this isn't on our show notes, but I got to ask you, as the draft is coming up, maybe it is in our show notes. I can't remember now. Have you been hearing more or less about certain players? Is there more guys that you're kind of more interested in now? Oh, there you go. Perfect for the Canucks to start off. Yeah.
Not a lot. I still have been kind of lazy looking at draft prospects.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of people doing their mocks on Twitter. I just don't really. We didn't really get to. There weren't like highlights being played of these guys all year like we usually get. Right? We usually see like, all right, the draft's coming up. Here's a bunch of clips from these people who are playing around the NHL because they haven't been, or around the WHL and college and all this stuff, but they just haven't been playing really. So I haven't really done my research. I'm sure, over the next 3 weeks, we have 3 weeks or 2 weeks, 2 weeks and 2 days, 16 days, until episode 15 of Canucks After Dark, episode 16. And I'll do some research by then.
Sure. And I wasn't trying to put you on the spot, Parker. I was just wondering because I know I've only really studied the top 10, and it helped that I spoke to Cam Robertson. But the one name is there's a defenseman named Simone Edvinsson, and some people have him ranked as high as 3 or 4, and others I've seen him fall out of people's top 10. So that's the one that's interesting. And I don't know if his name is linked to the Canucks at all, but I think we'd agree that the Canucks are weakest on the blue line right now when it comes to prospects. So we'll see.
There's always a couple of these prospects that are so divisive, and you have the scouts that you sort of follow on Twitter, right? Like Cam Robinson, JD Burke, like guys like this, where one of them will say this guy is going to be an absolute stud, and then this other guy's like 3rd round, and it's just like people see different things in these players, and you got to wonder what your GM and your scouting group is seeing. Because at the end of the day, we're just sort of at their mercy.
Yes.
And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you get what seems to be a reach, and you get one of the best centers, one of the best under 23 centers in the NHL, in Elias Pettersson. So it's the draft is kind of a crapshoot, and we're just along for the ride.
Yes. I will say one more thing. I know, and I saw a couple people in the chat mention it right when we came on, this name of Mason McTavish. He's coming up, and he could be a bona fide 3rd line center for us. Maybe not this season if we get him, but pretty darn soon. And maybe that's the way we fill a hole. But we'll see. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot to research, and there's a lot of movement that can happen prior to that. Because the cool thing is we simply don't know what the other 8 teams are going to do before us.
Nope, and we get those curveballs every year, right? You get the Barrett Hayton picks, you get the Kotkaniemi picks, you get the Moritz Seider picks, Phillips Zadina drop, like all these like weird things that go on that allow you to grab a Quinn Hughes who was supposed to go like 5th overall. And all these things, all these weird things can happen. You have Podkolzin who was projected to be 2nd or 3rd overall, and then over the course of a year he drops to 10. And you're starting to think, well, are these other teams seeing something that we're not, or what are we getting ourselves into here? So definitely going to be cool to see, who comes out of it. And of course, Friday, July 23rd, we will have a show, NHL Draft Special that night, 10 p.m. So make sure you watch it, and we'll be here to talk about our thoughts on the pick. And I'm sure we'll probably each be live during the draft or doing something. So make sure you're subscribed to both of us and do all that good stuff.
Yeah, that'll be fun. That'll be really good. What else we got?
I don't know. What else do we got? You did. We talked about Beagle. Do we want to talk about Duncan Keith?
Yeah, we talked for a couple minutes. It came up in the chat too. Yeah,
sure. So we've seen, look, obviously we're not real big Duncan Keith fans here. Very much at the tail end of his career.
Yes.
He's 39 at this point. I can't pull it up. He is 37, might as well be 39. And he's got some bad contract left on him. I think he's got 2 more years. So next year and the year after, at $5.5 million. Very low actual dollars, very front-loaded contract, but $5.5 million. Now, if we're talking about him basically saying that he wants to go to Pacific Northwest, basically, right? So Seattle, Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary are sort of your limits there. And I think it's because of like a Kamloops he wants to be close to, or something like that, I heard was the connection. So if we're talking a team that would take let's say Chicago retains half, right? Then we're talking about Duncan Keith at 2.7. What did he do last year? 15 points in 54 games. So his offense, he was really good offense, two-way defenseman, right? Peaked at 69 points one year, right? We're talking about a guy who's now on about a 25-point pace, minus 13. Obviously, plus minus doesn't tell the story. I don't have his analytics up or anything. But, we're talking about a guy who's not going to get better at this point, right? Especially not on the Canucks defense.
Yeah.
I think I just don't think the Canucks are a fit. And I mean, Rick Dhaliwal has said it's not going to be Vancouver probably. So now we're looking at potentially a Calgary or Edmonton connection on Duncan Keith here.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's a no-go zone, and if the Canucks somehow acquired him, he might be the only player that would get booed, like a Canucks player that would get booed when he touched the puck. Because I know, I don't know what I wouldn't forgive him for that cheap elbow he gave on Sedin in the 2012 Olympics, 2012 playoffs. Yeah,
I was at the Sedin jersey retirement game, which was against Chicago.
Yeah,
yeah, of course we were booing every time he touched the puck. It's fun. It's fun getting involved in that way. But yeah, no, we're not. I just don't see it happening. Daniel Sedin is in the front office now.
Yes.
So, I mean, look, if Daniel can forgive him, I do whatever Daniel Sedin told me to do, or any of them. But, I just don't see it being a thing.
Yeah. Imagine if Daniel's the one who sends off on the trade.
Yeah. Whoa. He's like, no, this is a good pick. Yeah, that would be wild. But I highly, highly doubt that.
That would be crazy. So I think we talked about this last time, but now that we're here, I'm going to give you 4 options now: buyout window, expansion draft, rookie draft or entry draft, and free agency. Of those 4, the one that Parker is most excited about is...
I think I'm most excited for the Seattle draft. And here's my reasoning. Buyout window... I mean, we're just getting rid of a guy, right? There's nothing really exciting about that. We might see some cool news that comes out of it, like some weird buyouts that we weren't expecting, but at the end of the day, that's not very exciting. NHL draft is exciting. The entry draft, that's fun, but I'm not super invested in the players. Canucks are getting one guy. That'll be fun. Or the other one, Seattle draft and free agency. Free agency is fun, but free agency is very scary as a Canucks fan. So I'm not really excited about it. I'm really interested in what Seattle's going to do. It's going to be really neat to see, who they go after on each team, what kind of team they put together. Are the GMs going to try to get ahead of themselves with their protection lists like we saw last time? That's the one that the most is up in the air for us, because it's literally a team forming out of nothing that is going to be a direct competitor in the same division as the Vancouver Canucks, which I think is super interesting.
Yeah, those are the 3 that options that I gave. Obviously, those are annual things, whereas expansion draft only comes, now twice in the past few decades, right? Anytime there's an expansion team. Yeah, I'm still excited about the entry draft, and I'm not a prospects expert. I never, said that I was, but I still think it's a way to shape our team. It's a weekend where trades are done, and maybe you kind of get an indication of where teams are heading towards in free agency. Regardless, yes, we will add a good player and a much needed player in our prospect system for sure.
Absolutely. All right. That kind of covers that.
Yep.
Agam asks a question that we've sort of answered earlier, but what do the Canucks do with JV? I think they buy him out, and I think they do it. Do you think they do it as soon as possible? Like just get it out of the way, like do it tomorrow at 8 p.m. Or do they, wait till like a Friday afternoon? What do you think the Canucks try to do here?
That's fast, because you said this buyout period lasts for a month, right? Until the free agency, or 3 weeks.
Yeah, it opens tomorrow at 8 p.m. and it ends the day before free agency, the night before free agency. So I think like 9 p.m. on the 28th or something like that. Yeah,
part of me says that they're not going to do it right at 8 p.m. because then it looks like, I don't know. It's kind of like this is kind of funny because I'm on social media quite a bit. It's kind of like that person who posts like at 12:01. When it's their birthday or their anniversary or something, like you just know that they're waiting to do it. I kind of sense
Christmas.
And I probably just offended like half the people in the chat, and I do that too. Watch, I'll post about my anniversary in about an hour from now. But you know what I mean?
Have to.
Now that I've said that. But I do think if the Canucks know that they're going to do it and there's nothing stopping them from doing it, then they know that they have that money. So they can plan. They can still plan even if they don't announce it yet. So I do agree with you, Parker. I think it'll be relatively early. I just don't know if it's going to be like the first one out of the chute kind of thing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All righty. We've got about 10 minutes left. And I think we've run out of topics here that are at least interesting. Unless there's anything else on this list that you are super interested in.
No, I like going to the people.
Let's go to the people. All right. 10 minutes to go here. Let's get some topics from you guys. You guys have been very active in the chat. Awesome to see. But of course, we are able to pull up your comments now right here on the stream. So whatever you guys want to talk about, give us some topics here. If we don't pick yours, we're sorry. There's a good chunk of people in here, so we might miss it. I like this one. Let's start with Euros. England or Italy? Did you watch the match today?
Did not watch the match, but saw the highlights and saw the drama unfold. Yeah,
it was pretty intense. I was watching it. Who are you rooting for here?
I am rooting for Italy because I worked for Italian Italian brothers at Italian restaurant, and I remember World Cup watching Italy Brazil. He closed the restaurant down. We all watched. He was drinking, and as soon as Brazil won in penalty kicks, he started throwing stuff around around the restaurant. We're like, okay, bye, Pietro. Have a great night, right? We left, but he didn't scare me into cheering for Italy. But I've always been fascinated with their team. It doesn't matter. It's not like I want England to lose. It's not like I need Italy to win. But if I had to pick one, I'd root for Italy.
I'm in the same boat, but I'm rooting for England. So let's do a little friendly wager here. We can figure it out after. But yeah, something. Sure. I'll go Team England. Okay. You go Team Italy.
Sure. Perfect.
Right. Do you want to pick one here?
You keep going because I can't.
Well, you can just say it. And
okay.
I can grab it.
Go with Pavel's. Could this be Jim? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, could this be Jim Benning's last season as the Canucks GM if they fail to make the playoffs? Yeah, and Pavel, I get the sense they might not even wait until the end of the season. If there's been so much, whether it's 10 people showing up at a Fire Benning rally, people renting out planes to fly across this, it's just a really weird time right now. And I think with fans back in the building, with the promise of we're going to push to make the playoffs. If they get off to a really bad start, I could see the Canucks making a move by Christmas. It seems early, but I think it's possible. What do you think, Parker?
And I was thinking this might happen in February of this last year, right?
Yeah.
Canucks go on a bad tumble, and it's like, well, if you've lost your faith in this guy, you want to do it now. Like get a new person in there so that they can't make any more mistakes. So yeah, I think this is it's this year or bust at this point for Jim Benning. If the Canucks don't make the playoffs this year, I mean, it's too late. And I think Pavel, I think he's done. And like you said, if they get close, like if they're 10 wins behind 500, in January, then I think, pull the plug. It's over. Let's start fresh.
Yes.
All right. R. Grant Laidley asks, are you considering on location next season? What's your, just you personally, what's your, when you go to games, what do you do on the YouTube side?
That's a good question. On the YouTube side, I will actually when I go to games, I will do intermission reflections, just a 2-minute thing that I'll put on Twitter only, not on YouTube. Cause I don't want to bog my YouTube channel with like 2-minute video here, 2-minute video there. Then I will usually film my post game recap from the arena right before the ushers kick me out. Actually, the ushers are really good. I usually say, or get my son to hold them off for a couple minutes, and then I just post it. But I didn't do post game live streams actually until this year because of COVID. Because we were watching all the games from home, right? Home, not even home or away. Yeah, I mean, yes, home and away. We were watching games from home. So I never got into this quandary, Parker, of how am I going to live stream when I'm at the game, because I never did post-game live stream. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do. We'll see what happens, because I want to get to as many games as possible.
Yeah.
But then I was also going to say, I think Grant might also be asking if you and I would get together and do something live. But if it's 10 p.m., I'm not sure.
Well, here's the thing. Now that we're using StreamYard as our software of choice, we can run this from phones or like from a phone. if need be. So if we need to do a Monday night after a game from the Roger Nielsen statue, then, if it has to happen, it has to happen. I think that would be fun. So we'll see. We'll keep you guys posted on that, because I'll definitely try to get to a few games as well.
Yeah, that'd be cool if we met up and did even if it wasn't a full hour, but a quick 20 to half an hour
post game sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, good.
All right. What else do we have here? Anything anything sticking out to you?
I saw a couple earlier, but I don't want
to. Agam asks, what's Jim Benning's biggest mistake in his tenure? It's Louis Eriksson, right? Is there? Yeah. Sold. Okay. That one's easy. There's a lot of good comments. That's what's tough, right? Like we don't want to leave anyone out, but we also want to pick the best ones.
Actually, let's go with Lucas's from 1050. Thoughts on past season and the divisions. I know he's put a couple comments in the chat asking. Yeah, awesome. Thanks, Parker. Thoughts on the past season and the divisions that the NHL used. Why don't you start us off? What do you think of the way they did it?
It was a fun experiment, and I don't like the divisions themselves. I think they're too unbalanced, and of course, it's just going to happen. Like you're going to have bad divisions every once in a while, and that's fine. But I think the issue there was, the fact that they never played other teams. Now, the NHLPA did their player poll, and they asked the players what they liked. They said, "Did you like basically the current divisions?" And most of them didn't, because it's more travel, right? Especially in Canada, it was more travel. But I like that they're going back to the regular divisions. But the other question was, do you like the series style? So you go to a city, you play 2 or 3 games there. And I've seen some arguments of you get kind of bored because you're playing the same team night after night. But on the other hand, it's like it builds up this rivalry, right? Like if something goes down on Thursday night and the same teams played against each other Saturday and Monday in the same building, there's going to be some fireworks, especially with fans in the stands. I hope they at least keep it a little bit, right? I'm sure that they'll still do a lot of just one-offs, but maybe the occasional, like each team gets a couple series in their own division, right? Like have Montreal come here for 2 games, 3 games over the course of a week, and maybe have it culminate on a Saturday night and just, have, some excitement brewing for this little mini series, especially late in the season, right? If you have 2 teams competing for a playoff spot and you're able to sort of plan ahead and guess like who's going to be the 3rd and 4th teams in the division, they're fighting for a playoff spot, and they have a 3-game set at the end of the season to figure it out, that would be amazing. I'm hoping that they keep that at least somewhat in part.
Yeah, Parker, I'm totally biased. If the Canucks had a way better season, and if the games meant something in April and May, I would say, man, I don't know if I keep it, but I would say I would have liked this Canadian division a lot better, this North division. But the fact that the Canucks were already out by the end of March, basically, those games against Ottawa, those are painful. Those 3 or 4 in a row when Ottawa was actually beating us in April or May or whatever that was.
And the ones against the Flames at the end.
Yes. I did get sick of them, but I do agree with you that even when they go back to the regular divisions, those 2 or 3 game series make sense. In theory, it cuts your travel down. And yes, exactly. You're building up rivalry, especially if something goofy happens in game number 1 of a 3-game set. It's going to be crazy. It'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's got a lot of potential. It's also got a lot of potential for if you have like the Canucks and Flames, 2 teams that aren't in the playoffs playing 3 games at the end of the season, you'll have literally 0 people watching. So that's where it can falter. It's a little risky, but it also has the potential to be very, very cool.
Hey, can you put up our grants for me real quick about the watch? I'll tell them very quickly. It is just a Fitbit. Everyone else in my family is way more cooler. They have the Apple Watch, but I'm old school Fitbit.
Looks good.
Thanks, buddy.
Agam says Canucks versus Seattle at CenturyLink needs to happen. Yes, this is like as a winter classic, like next year or something, like 2023. Would be so awesome, right? At Lumen Field it is now. But like putting 67,000 fans at CenturyLink for Canucks and Seattle, like I'll be there. Like tell me time and place, I'm there. It would be awesome to have an outdoor game in that stadium.
I would love to erase the stench that is still on my mind, taste buds, wherever stench goes, from that Heritage Classic game I went to.
Yeah.
Vancouver versus Ottawa.
Yeah, that was a weird one.
Luongo watching from the bench.
Yep.
Traded 2 days later.
Torts.
Yeah, exactly.
Thanks, Torts. Great. Yeah,
Yes.
I think this would be super cool because you'd sell it out in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
You'd have literally thousands of people coming from Vancouver, thousands, and you have 50,000 Kraken fans there. It'd be awesome, especially if Seattle's a decent team. I can see that being an excellent time.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Parker, I'm good friends with Marie, the wonderful anthem singer, and she brought me down to one of the games she did when it was, CenturyLink Seahawks game.
Yep.
And I was talking to some of the organizers there, and I asked them how many of your season ticket holders are Canadians. Like I was curious, and the number was actually smaller than I thought. It was only 2,000. So maybe. Yeah, I thought it'd be closer to 3 to 5, maybe, but
especially because it's only 8 games a year, right? Like it's not a huge commitment.
It's true.
It's 8 weekends.
But maybe they only allow a certain block. I don't know. But 2,000, I guess, out of 70,000 is still a lot. Like it's good.
I've been on the waiting list for about 4 years, and I think I have 60,000 spots to go. So I will be there in about 20 years. I'll have my Seahawks season tickets.
Yes. Yes.
Anyways. I think we're past 11 o'clock, so I think probably a good place to wrap it up there. Hope you guys enjoyed. I hope, no technical difficulties. Everything looks to have worked well. I love the whole ability to put things on the screen like this. Leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, and we will read it out on the next show. And it helps us out a lot, so we really appreciate it when you do that. Yeah, it's we're just gonna focus on Clay on the working the ticker here.
Well, good. Now I got the whole screen.
But anyways, I hope you guys have a good week. We'll be back next Wednesday. Like we said, all shows for the month of July are going to be on Wednesdays. So make sure you're around the 14th, the 21st, the 23rd, the Friday night draft special, and the 28th. Wednesday nights, all every day this week. If you missed any part of the show, obviously lots of you guys came in a little bit late. You guys have busy schedules.
Of course.
If you came in late, you can on YouTube here. You can rewind, go back to the start, and rewatch. If you're tired, you can just download the podcast in the morning on your way to work, or whether you're working from home. Download the podcast. It'll be up within about half an hour on Spotify, a couple hours on Apple Podcasts. So we will, if you missed it, you can watch it there. That also helps us out. So, anyways, thank you guys for watching. Clay, anything you want to say signing off here?
Yes. Happy birthday, HSM Fangirl Gaming.
Absolutely.
Happy birthday tomorrow. Happy anniversary to me and my lovely wife, Gail. Parker, great job on this new platform. I'm gonna master this by next week. So, and I'm gonna try to do it where I look a little cooler when I'm doing it like this.
Yeah. Absolutely. Just no look. Perfect.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. That's it for us. Thank you guys very much. And we'll see you next week.